Join us at Glossy's Beauty and Wellness Summit from November 11th through 13th in Napa, California. Influential beauty and wellness leaders will meet to discuss strategies and pain points, discover innovative tech, and ultimately make valuable business connections through one-on-ones and casual networking. For a limited time, we are offering $200 off with promo code GBS24, no spaces. Again, that's promo code GBS24 with no spaces. Go to glossy.co/beauty summit for more information and to secure your pass today.
Hi, and welcome to the Glossy Beauty Podcast. I'm Sarah Sprickfiner, Senior Reporter for Glossy Pop, and your host for today's episode, featuring Carina Chaz, founder of DedCool. Chaz founded DedCool at just 21 in 2016. The brand launched at Sephora in 2022. It is known not only for its affordable price points, luxury fragrances often cost hundreds of dollars, DedCool bottles are $90, but for its fun takes on the fragrance category. It has put its fine fragrances into products like pet shampoo and car fresheners, as well as laundry detergents and dryer sheets. On this week's episode of the Glossy Beauty Podcast, we discuss how Chaz taught herself the art of perfume making, the fact that the brand appeals to a wide demographic, but one with, quote, Gen Z values, and how laundry became 30% of its business. Hi, Carina. Welcome to the Glossy Beauty Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today and talk all things DedCool.
Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, I am a huge fan of the Glossy Podcast and obviously a huge fan of you. And I'm so excited to be a part.
It is so mutual. We've gotten to work on some fun stories, and I have become such an authentic fan of this brand. Will you tell our listeners, you were quite young when you started this brand. You are, a business. I never know how you say this. Wonderkind? Is that how you say that word? I really need to know that.
Yes, you got it right. It's from like Ted Lasso when he said Wonder Kid, and then everyone made fun of him.
Oh my God. Okay. Great reference. Love that. Yeah. So you were quite young when you started the brand. Now it's at Sephora. It's growing. You're getting into new categories. We're going to talk about all of that today. But tell us just the short version of how you started the brand and did so, I believe, at just 21.
Yes. So it's been a journey and definitely a marathon, not a race. So I've been obsessed with fragrance and composing fragrance from, as long as I can remember. My first fragrance I made when I was actually 13 years old. And I come from a background of beauty. So both of my parents are immigrants. They moved to the US, met coincidentally on Los Angeles Street. They were in the schmata business, which for those of you who don't know is more of like fabric. And my mom, being born in Italy on a farm, had always lived off of the land. And this was very early, new adapter to this like green beauty movement. And she started developing her own products in her kitchen, ultimately opened up her first store next to the original Erewhon in the 80s. So it's just a funny, we're very like Angelino, but also have this like rich background of organic lifestyle. And, my parents had a very small mom and pop manufacturing business, which ultimately was my playground. So, being the daughter of two very hardworking people and, small business owners, the factory, the lab was my playground. And it was, every after school activity took place there. Every summer I spent, packing boxes and cutting straws. And it's funny because growing up, my parents always said, one day we would love you to be a part of this business. And when you're a child, you resist everything your parents say. And they focused more on spa products, never fragrance, but it was the fragrance composition that kept me engaged and interested. And at, 13 years old, all my friends were wearing pink sugar, and that was their first expression of
Throwback.
yeah, exactly. It's so funny. I can smell that scent from miles away. It was the first expression of fragrance I had experienced. And I remember thinking at the time, that's not how I want to identify. That's not how I want to smell. And I always joke that, I didn't wear, women's clothes until I was 16 years old. And there was this part of me that loved a more quote unquote masculine scent profile. And I found myself gravitating towards, again, more of like musky, woodier notes. And because I grew up in this very hippy dippy environment, I was never allowed to wear traditional perfume. And that was because of the ingredient makeup. And I remember my mom gave me an essential oil kit. And as excited as I was about the kit, it didn't really have this beautiful composition I so desired. And it wasn't until, I bugged them endlessly to let me play with some scent profiles in the lab, obviously with an expert, because at the time I had no idea what I was doing. And I joke that I still have no idea what I'm doing because I am a self-taught nose. So it started with that first scent of many iterations, which is actually our taunt fragrance.
Still a bestseller, right?
Yeah, it is a bestseller. It's funny because that scent not only gave me my own personal coming of age, confidence. It's amazing how the scent has evolved into obviously being a part of this larger vision and this crazy reality that I live in now, which is DedCool. And ultimately, I so desperately wanted to continue this fragrance world and create products that spoke to me as a person, as a consumer. Obviously, Byredo paved the way for niche perfumery, but at the end of the day, it's a beautiful product, but definitely rooted in luxury. And as a young person, at the age of 21, I found myself again wanting to express myself through scent. And for me, it was never hair, it was never makeup. I mean, you can see me, I'm very, very bare. But now, obviously, being immersed in beauty, I have a lot of beauty founder friends and utilize a lot of their products and am a big fan. But for, it's always been fragrance is a tool of self expression. And I always used it as a coming of age story. And this concept of Dead Cool really started on Instagram, where I was in university, I had a lot of free time. I moved back to LA and I had this vision of creating a new wave of fragrance and trying to figure out how that could live within a greater, beauty scope. And again, at the time, I had no experience blending. I really, again, am a self-taught perfumer. And I so vividly remember this concept of Dead Cool and the idea, and I was so committed to making it happen. And I always joke that at the time I had the opposite of imposter syndrome, where I believed it can sit on the shelves with, the Byredos and the Lalabos of the world. And ultimately it did, which is such a crazy pinch me thing.
Yeah.
But, it's funny because every opportunity and every moment in time where I was able to show my fragrance to people, it gave me the confidence to keep going. And I'm very thankful for for those early years where I feel like I was very green behind the ears, but so committed to making this a reality. And ultimately, that was 2016 when the early conversation of DedCool started. And we make the joke that DedCool wasn't a real company until 2020, just because, again, very grassroots, very bootstrapped, no outside funding. It was just a one woman show. And, to think where we are now is quite the surreal, crazy whirlwind experience that I get to live every day.
What was the change in 2020? Was that when you first got outside funding? What happened then?
It was more so the business truly took shape, where it was the first look at a financial model. It was the first look at, margins and profitability. And because I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background, and I say that from what my parents are entrepreneurs, but I more so focused on art and visual in my university and my schooling. So I didn't have quite the experience. And with that, I was so nimble and so frugal. I did not spend a dollar. The initial investment, obviously, you need to invest in merchandise, came from savings. It was a $10,000 loan that I essentially gave to myself after, saving my whole life, birthdays and whatever it may be, graduation.
So that was the 2016 getting the
Yes,
brand off the ground with
exactly.
basically a $10,000 investment in yourself.
And then that was for inventory. Then the brand really, we started with Taunt, our first fragrance, and then fragrance number two. And the concept to reinvest and make money and find some momentum was being consignment on all these fun mom and pop shops. So I would go in and, give a presentation of my brand and display it, and people were really intrigued. And some people were like, that's interesting, but I don't know what to quite do with it. And we can put it on the shelf, and if it sells, it'll work. And ultimately it was selling and it was working. And, again, when I talk about it working, was very, very small, and the business was very, very small. So ultimately, what changed in 2020, it took, 4 years to build momentum, build a very small brand halo, an email list. I would go to trade shows, and there's a thing called Unique Market, which like I would display my products and ultimately try and get the DedCool scent on anyone who would smell it. And it was very much this community-led thing. And our laundry detergent launched in 2020, again, something a little bit more obscure and outlandish. And we didn't have the marketing dollars to really speak about what we were doing in a way that could, touch a larger consumer group. But we had enough visibility, and we grew very organically. And I hired my CFO in 2021. And from there, we hired our first group of DedCool employees and team members. And again, very slow to start, but I'm very thankful for those years because it taught me a lot. I know every single piece of the business. Obviously, now we have experts in the room. And I joke that at one point I had a piece of their job, but they're truly the leaders making it happen. And, I'm so blessed that I get to learn from the smartest people in the room and ultimately continuously get this vision and create it. And, the fact that people utilize Deadpool products in their everyday life is just so crazy to me, but so exciting.
And you mentioned, brands like Byredo, but one thing I think that you can't help but immediately notice about DedCool is really big price difference than some of these brands, which I think has maybe helped position it as friendlier to a younger demographic. Tell me about sort of the decision to make it a more approachable price point. I think a full size bottle of perfume is about $90. Correct me if I'm wrong. Whereas Byredo, it's like closer to $300, I think. That's off the top of my head. What was that decision like for you? You're now at Sephora. So like you said, alongside many luxury players. And were you thinking about a younger audience when you created the brand or as you've grown it?
Yeah. And I think too, the understanding of myself being a consumer in this space and the brand really starting from my own personal aspirations of what, beauty meant to me and how I wanted it to be an expression of myself. And for so long, and, there's still definitely a large commercial business with true luxury fragrance and skincare and makeup, and you see it across so many different categories. But the concept of DedCool was really to reshape the way fragrance is defined and experienced. And I wanted to create more of an accessible price point that people wouldn't feel so precious. Their fragrance should be a part of their everyday life. It should be a part of how they have a fragrance wardrobe or how they want to express themselves. And the best way I put it into words is like, you get from your great aunt to, your distant aunt, she'll get you a beautiful fine fragrance for the holidays and it's $300 and you want to spray it only on special occasions, but that eliminates the fun of fragrance. I mean, for us, we always say that we're functional. We put the emphasis on fun. We want people to utilize these products and use it as a vehicle to feel good, to smell good, not to have it be this precious thing that you only wear on special occasions. And, not only that, we seek to inspire individuality and we want people to play with their scent and layer them and really create what feels good for our consumer and for our community.
Are you a beauty or wellness brand looking to showcase your work alongside the top in the industry? The Glossy Beauty Awards provides the opportunity to recognize your company's work with categories including Skincare Brand of the Year, Beauty CEO of the Year, Beauty Brand of the Year, and many others. This is your chance to showcase the campaigns, initiatives, products, and practices that make your brand truly stand out. Join the esteemed ranks of past winners like Rare Beauty, Olaplex, and Ulta Beauty. Discover more and start your entry at glossy.co/awards/beauty.
Perfume has like really exploded as a category over the past couple of years. I remember it was actually, I think back in 2021, writing a story that sort of spoke to my own surprise at how big the category was on TikTok, just because, you see like a concealer or a foundation and you see it cover up someone's acne and you're like, yeah, that makes sense that someone would then be, inspired to buy that because they saw TikTok. But perfume, it's really crazy because like the person can't smell it through the screen. We don't have, smell-o-vision yet or whatever. Like, why do you think this category has blown up so much and succeeded on social media? And like, how do you sort of work to keep DedCool in that conversation?
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. And it's true. There's so many different conversations to be had about the true explosion of the category. And a lot of people say, during the pandemic, people weren't wearing their makeup, they weren't doing their hair, but they were using fragrance as a tool to feel good and smell good. So it could be that. It could be, again, at this point in time, there are so many beautiful and accessible brands that, again, truly seek to inspire people to wear fragrance every day and not just on these very special moments. And I think it gives people, again, the opportunity to utilize just a different self-expression where for so long people were using makeup as the only tool and using your hair as the only tool. And it's kind of this like hidden thing that really came to the surface. And obviously I'm really excited about it because I've always felt this about fragrance, but to have a new community really experience it and make it their own is really cool to see.
What are like sort of the demographics of DedCool? Like who are the brand's biggest fans?
So it's interesting because we have a very large demo, and that's not only because we have a fragrance for everybody, it's truly because we have categories that can expand across people's lives. And I always use my mom as the example. She's in her 60s and she's buying the smiley face slippers from Instagram. So we always call it like a Gen Z valued consumer. And I'm not Gen Z, and our largest demo isn't Gen Z, but we call them Gen Z valued, Gen Z minded. And that's, using products that are ultimately good for you, good for the environment, are not so rigid. We always say that, we take the category very seriously, but not ourselves. And with that, you can see, demographics of, an older generation, a younger generation. We're kind of growing with our consumers, which is really exciting. And it's possible because of all of the different categories. For example, the laundry detergent, we've had, young, let's call them, teens to very early adults. They're going to college for the first time. They started with the DedCool fragrance. Now they have the laundry in their dorm room and the dryer sheets. So it's really cool to see this kind of expansive experience with the brand. And, whether it be an air freshener in your car or the body products, there is a product for everybody. And
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing to see. And I think at the end of the day, I know that I'm doing my job when when we have an array of, you know, community members experiencing the brand in a way again that makes sense for them.
Yeah, August 2022, you and I worked on this Glossy exclusive together. The headline with DedCool launch, Sephora enters the laundry detergent and air freshener category. So you were the first brand for Sephora to carry a detergent or an air freshener. Tell our listeners what that's been like. I know that you are now expanding detergent. You have a continued partnership with Way. I know I just threw a lot at you, but Sephora, Way, why are these partnerships so effective for the brand, do you think?
Well, I think for us, and as you mentioned, the fragrance category has expanded so much, and Deadpool has never, or it was never meant to be like a true fragrance brand. And we are a fragrance brand, but we want to speak to fragrance in ways that our competitors aren't speaking to fragrance. And again, looking at DedCool, it's a very personal project for myself. So the concept of laundry detergent being more of an outlandish category expansion, ultimately a huge part of our business now, has really given us the true opportunity to tell the story we want to. And that's we want people to experience fragrance in different ways, different mediums throughout your daily touch points. We want there to be more scented experiences. So it's funny when Sephora gave us the opportunity, obviously, we took it to launch the first laundry detergent. And we do have an Allure Beauty Award on our laundry detergent, which I believe is also a first and also kind of a funny thing. Because when you look at fragrance again, for so long, it has been such a luxury item. And then to infuse that scent into laundry, which is more of like this utilitarian, everyday need for your home seems odd, but at the end of the day, makes so much sense. I mean, it makes sense to me, and hopefully it makes sense to our consumers. But ultimately, we have expanded laundry within Sephora. It's been such an emerging category for us. It's again a fun way for us to really speak about our brand in the way that we want our consumers to truly feel and have this like true experience. And with Way, I mean, it's funny how these partnerships come to be. It's a very small industry, and I'm friends with so many amazing, as I mentioned, founders and people in the space. And we're all rooting for each other, which I think is the beautiful thing about it. Even in the same category, anytime I go to any Sephora summit, I'm at the table with all of the fragrance founders and we're all sharing information and we're great friends. And there's no like a competitive spirit about it. It's if you're succeeding, I'm succeeding. And ultimately we need each other there to amplify. So it's pretty exciting to be in those conversations and in the room. And with Way, obviously, they have their notable fragrances. They're quite impressive with their line. And obviously, just Jen and Hannah and Nikki and all of these amazing people behind the scenes are ultimately just the coolest people. So, Hannah, who is now the new CEO of Way, is a brand friendly of mine. And we ultimately, she was a fan of the laundry. I'm a huge fan of Way. Very organically we had an early conversation of let's, make something together. Is it hair? Is it fragrance? Is it something? And it ultimately ended up being laundry detergent in Melrose Place. And, you know, the Way team didn't quite know how it would hit with their consumers. For us, obviously, it was an emerging category, but we didn't know how our consumers would feel about the scent profile because they're so accustomed to the Dead Cool scent. And we made, I believe, we had 3 months of inventory because obviously this was a test. And the first Way iteration sold out in like less than a week, which is so crazy. And ultimately, we, saw the success of this partnership, and we quickly came together. And these projects truly take a village, and to see how fast we were able to execute it is so impressive from both teams. I'm always so proud to say that we truly, hit on this moment. And ultimately, we then made, I think it was like a 9-month supply, and ultimately sold out in a month. And we saw the true excitement around this partnership, and we had fun pop-up moments, and there's, things that we're working on in the background, which we're very excited to share with our community. And yeah, I mean, it's truly a success story, and we couldn't have done it without the Way team. And we feel so thankful to work with such a great group of individuals. So
Could you have ever imagined that, like, because the laundry is $14 for a mini and $60 for, I mean, it's a big jug, but like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, most of the time I feel very guilty about this. I hope that my mom doesn't listen to this episode. I send my laundry out. I don't
well,
have
you
it
live in New
in
York.
unit.
That's a
Yeah,
very
I live in New York. I don't have in
yeah.
unit laundry. I do have it in my building. I just don't have that much time to get down and do it. And listen, I think that if I had it in my apartment, I would completely be that girl being a snob about my laundry detergent. But at the same time, I'm like, thinking about it, I'm like, that's expensive. Could you have imagined that there would be an appetite for $60 laundry detergent?
So the laundry, the tin, which is the full size, is $35. And it's a
Okay.
dollar.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's like a
That's
dollar
a
a
big
load.
difference.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
refill is 60. And
The
then,
refill.
yeah,
Okay. So that's like you're getting 2 tins.
exactly. So there is
Okay.
some value.
Yeah. How
But
many scents does it come in now, by the way?
5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm Yep. And
Okay.
I mean, at this point, it's 30% of our business, which is huge. Really
Wow.
exciting because I remember telling people very early on, beauty execs who were advising me at the time, I want to launch a scented laundry detergent. And verbatim, I got, that's crazy. No one will trust you to wash their clothes. And thankfully, they do trust us. And we do wash a lot of people's clothes and a lot of people's sheets. And to your point, it is definitely a larger expense than your traditional laundry detergent. And that's a very fair point. The thing about it is some people utilize it, for every load, and some people have it as for their intimates, for their sheets. So again, we want to show up in a way that makes sense for our consumer. We, have very like entry products like the dryer sheets where you'll still get again the scented experience if you use like a free and clear or whatever it may be. But it's I mean it's one of my favorite categories. So I never liked doing laundry until we made the detergent. So
And pet, which I forgot about. And when I was on your website, I was like, oh, Laka, you don't know. You're going to get a dead cool bath. Body just got a makeover. Why did Body get a makeover?
So we always like to test things before, and it's not to say fully investing because any launch obviously is a major investment. We wanted to see the appetite, and the beauty of social media is we get to speak to our consumers directly, and we're very open on what we're launching, when we're launching it, you know, what we need to do for our consumers for them to feel really good about the product. And, everyone wanted a body and they wanted a hand and they wanted a something. And ultimately, we launched our first iteration of hand and body, which looked and lived as products that were multi-use. So the hand and the body could live as one. And then again, very small fine details that we refined in the formula just based off of customer feedback. So our original hand and body had been on the market for about a year. And then as we were getting a little bit more refined, We changed the packaging. We expanded the collection. So we added scrub and hand cream. We separated hand and body. And again, wanting to create a more expansive range of products that truly fit this mold of expanding fragrance beyond a glass bottle and truly experiencing it at every, touch point of your life.
Like we sort of talked about, it's been an exciting couple years for this category. It's really blown up. I know for me, it was one of the categories that I was not like you. I was not, I do remember for me, like Vera Wang Princess. And I remember like the first like Marc Jacobs Daisy and like there was like an Escada scent. Like I guess I have those obviously like early scent memories like going into Sephora, but I was not as cool as you like making perfume at 13. No. And then like when I started my career in beauty, like I got really into skincare. And it's only been for me in the past couple years, I think, that I've come to like understand what notes I like and, I don't know, even be able to follow like what's going on Perfume Talk and feel any kind of expertise in this arena. Do you have any predictions industry-wide or obviously, based on your own plans for DedCool about sort of where this exciting segment of the beauty industry is headed before we let you go?
Yeah, no, I think you're going to continuously see, and exactly to your point for so long, and it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to understand, let's say, skincare, for example. You know what you need for your skin. You have experts telling you if you want to remove blemishes, you use this. If you wanted this, you use this serum. So for fragrance, it's a little bit more imaginative. And I think that's the hurdle that we all face is how to, without a tangible experience, tell people how they want to smell or how they want to feel. And thankfully, at this point, I feel like we've cracked the code. We obviously still have work that needs to be done. But to your point, you just started understanding what you like and what you don't like and what you maybe gravitate towards. So I think, fragrance brands are going to get smarter about how we talk about these kinds of scent profiles and how we really execute this to more of a general consumer. You're in the beauty space, but then there's, tons of people who aren't in the beauty space that don't even know the concept of what like a musk smells like or whatever it may be. So I think as these brands emerge, there's going to be a lot of education, and that's something that we're definitely going to be prioritizing as we grow and expand and continuously launch newness.
That's so interesting. One follow-up question. What are you finding are some of the best ways to educate about perfume? Because it can feel like such an ephemeral topic.
It's interesting because now we are seeing, for a long time, it was a lot of storytelling and coming from the brand side, but we're seeing so much coming from the UGC side because it's really authentic and first reactions are truly shaping, again, like to your point, Perfume Talk and Instagram. And it's really about hearing people's experiences firsthand, which has been monumental for us and our growth.
Amazing. So a lot of outreach and feeding and all of that stuff.
Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Congratulations. It sounds like it's such an exciting time for the brand.
Thank you. No, this has been amazing. And we're very excited to show you all what we're working on in the background and, lots more to come.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Glossy Beauty Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help us out. And of course, visit glossy.co/beauty for even more coverage of the beauty industry. Bye!